If you're a small business owner struggling to make ends meet and feel like you're constantly scraping by, there might be free money out there waiting for you. Tonight on the Better Your Business Show, we're talking about grants, those hidden gems that can give your bootstrapping business the boost it needs. Join us as we uncover the secrets of grant funding and explore how you can tap into this valuable resource to take your business to the next level. You don't want to miss it.
Our goal is simple: to help you achieve the dream and vision you first had when you thought about starting a business. We're here to make growing your business less complicated. There are building blocks to build a sustainable business. We promise to seek them out and address them all. The Better Your Business Show starts now.
Welcome to tonight's show. I'm Shanna Mavis, your host du jour. Our amazing host, Natalie Essman, is not feeling well today, but I know she is probably tuning in to offer virtual support. I know she was looking forward to this topic with tonight's guest expert because it's about money, and not just any money. We're talking about free money, y'all. So tonight I've got Natalie Poindexter, founder and principal consultant of Authentic Inclusion Consulting. It's a disruptive business strategy consulting firm that specializes in curating holistic operational solutions to meet the needs of innovative, expanding, and overwhelmed businesses interested in improving their operational success. Natalie is also the host of Tea, Coffee, Water podcast. So let's welcome to the studio, Natalie Poindexter.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey.
So
I'm
excited
so
to be here.
excited to have you here. We've been waiting on this because this is a topic, as you know, that many business owners want to know about. It is about money. Where do I get it? How do I get it? Why didn't I get it? You know, all of those questions. I want free money. Hey, Denise O'Malley, y'all. So I'm excited she's here too, because she's going to have some thoughts and feedback and questions on the second half of the show. But yeah, Natalie, so tell us a little bit about your background. We're not going to go as in depth as we did in the pre-show convo, but I'd love to, just enlighten our audience how you got started, where you are today, what you do.
Sure. So I specialize in grant writing and technical assistance. And technical assistance, think of that as everything from technical writing to project planning to development and proposal design. I got started doing all of this about 8 years ago, and just enjoyed doing this like more evaluation side of grant funding. I worked for a nonprofit and I was volunteered to do that part. And I realized, you know what, I'm pretty good at this. Like, I'm going to keep at it. And fast forward, have a background in public health. So learned how to do grants in school. And then I realized, hey, there's a need for not only education, but access to many underserved communities. And I could be that person if possible. So that's why I started my business.
So, I love that. And I love, and for those of you that are members of the community, you'll get a chance to catch that pre-show conversation that we had with Natalie. But, as we were talking, you said you applied for your own grant. Things didn't go so well, but you have raised or helped businesses, companies procure like $15 million in grants. So it is possible that grant money is available to people out there who need it for their businesses, right?
Oh, absolutely. And if we had if there is a grant writer out there with a perfect record, I am waiting to meet them. I'd love to learn. But yeah, it is one of those. I talked to someone today and she's like, I submitted 3 and I only got 1. And I was like, so 33%?
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, I don't know. Did you expect to get all 3? And she's like, yeah. It's like, oh, well, Doesn't
Oh,
always happen. But then the follow-up question is always like, were you prepared to get all 3 grants at once? And if so, what were you going to do with that money? So that's just like some food for thought for anyone that's applying and you don't get your first one. It's okay. Keep
so,
going.
so that's interesting that you would ask, what are you going to do with all of that money? Because, in a lot of our minds, as we're thinking about, getting, there's no shortage of things to do with money when you when you own your own business.
Mm-hmm.
But the challenge, if I'm not mistaken, just based on doing a lot of grant research, the challenge is some of them are so restricted in how you can spend it. And some require that you tell them how you're going to spend it. So is that more of, I guess, in alignment with why you would ask that question? If you got it all, what would you do with it?
Yeah, for sure. Because the big thing with grants is you want to be able to tell the funder how you spent their money. And it's just like with investors, right? They want to know ahead of time, what is my ROI and how soon am I going to get it? And if you tell them it's 6 months and you haven't done your due diligence, you're probably not going to get that money if you know that it's actually a year in that return, right? So it's the same thing with grants. How are you going to spend that money? How are you going to tell your funder how you spent that money? And then the other part is if you ever want to go back and get more money from them, having that documented really, really well, so that you can say, hey, you guys gave me 50K the last time. Here's what I did with it. And the other piece of why I asked, like, if you get all of that funding at once, what you would do is most people don't write in that they're going to hire someone to help. They think they're going to do all of the work on their own, and it's not possible. Um,
We say that too, but I'm glad to hear someone else telling people you cannot do it all on your own.
No, no, and they don't want you to, honestly. Like when you write in these things, if you can write in, um, the term would be capacity building in the grant language, right? You are hiring people, you are building personnel. Um, they like to see that because that means you're going to probably be on time, you're going to spend their money right, you're going to make the impact that you said you would. But as entrepreneurs or small business owners, I mean, we wear 5 to 7 hats a day. How do you wear all of those hats and initiate a project at the same time? And that's what
Well,
I like to ask.
you don't do it well.
No.
So, I think, is it playing on Facebook? Are you live on your side?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So that was just a weird echo I was hearing
Oh,
my voice coming back at me. It threw me off. I was so charmed by myself. Okay, but for real, one of the things that we talked about before was what was it? I didn't want to forget it. It was in alignment with how you're going to spend the money, or maybe it was restrictions on spending money, and you or the
oh,
types of grants. Do you remember what it was?
was it discretionary?
Okay,
Talking about the word discretionary?
I know that was one of the things. You talk about that for a little bit, and then I've got my notes, so I'm
Okay.
going to refer to my notes tonight. Natalie would be so proud of me. So let's talk about, what does discretionary mean for as far as
Sure.
grants go?
Yeah, so there's usually 3 types of funding that you could apply for. You have discretionary funding, which that is the thing that makes everyone's ears perk up. It means you are using it for a specific type or specific reason, but it's not as restrictive. So you might use it for community development, and those are gardens. It's not as like you have to build your garden here and it has to be this size and it has to do this thing and it only can do that. That's discretionary funding in a 10-second description. But then you also have things like cost sharing, where the funder will say, hey, we want to know you have some skin in the game. You have to match what we're doing, or a percent of what we're doing. And then the other part is like a cooperative agreement, which is typical for your federal or your state funding opportunities, where they will say, hey, we are going to give you money, and then you will give other people this money. You don't really use the money, we funnel it through you to other people. A lot of the for-profit funding is technically discretionary. You might not see that language, but you will see a question around how are you going to use this, or how are you going to be able to tell us that you used it? And that's usually how you know you're going after some discretionary funding.
Okay. So I know what it was and I wrote it down so I won't forget it. But I do want to talk about the reporting requirements around grants, because you keep, I think a lot of people think that the process stops once you get the money. But there are reporting requirements, right?
Absolutely.
How do you keep track of that? What do you recommend that people do just to set themselves up for success should they get some of this money?
Yeah, I mean, typically in your grant application, you're going to have two major things that you can use to then help you manage that budget. One is your budget, the other is your timeline. And on your timeline, you should have like those key milestones, those benchmarks. And in that timeline, you should have pieces of your evaluation plan, whether that's an internal evaluation or that's a project evaluation, and always looking at, are we spending too much too fast? Are we not spending enough? Did we accidentally do really, really good and we need to go back to the drawing board because we've reached capacity of what we can do faster than we expected? That, and then, I mean, using something simple, like I'm not the biggest fan of Excel, but you can use an Excel spreadsheet. I would recommend something like an Asana, a Monday.com, a Notion if you so chose, something where you can actually follow and track your timeline and how you're moving that money. So following your budget, knowing those line items, and then being able to say, hey, this is where the money went.
Okay, I love that. And when you mentioned Asana, I've used all of those, but Asana, I could see setting it up beautifully, and then automating some of the, hey, guess what? This is coming up. Have you reported this? Where are you at in the stage of this grant spending? Because I do know of organizations that have received, grant funding, and then that next year when they went to apply, realized that they ran out fast. I mean, and it almost destroyed that organization because they expected that they were this was supposed to last that entire year.
Yeah.
And then I think 7-8 months into it, the funds were almost depleted. And so they're scrambling to try to make it the rest of the year. You have to pivot and make decisions that aren't necessarily going to help build your business and help continue, that sustainability factor.
Yeah.
So it is tremendously important that you're monitoring it at these different intervals. And it sounds like just in case you need to go back, if for no other reason, then you might need more money. Show them how you used the money that they gave you, how you stewarded it.
Oh, and I always tell folks too, like telling a funder, hey, I did better than I expected to, is a good thing. But if you go to them and you're like, well, I didn't actually manage this that well, but do you want to fund me again? And they're probably gonna be like, no, I don't. And I also, let me say this. If you are a company who gets funding and you don't spend all of your grant funding, you aren't going to get the same amount if you go back and ask for it again, because they already found out, if you went for let's just say you were awarded $250,000.
Yes,
but
please.
Yeah, It's out there. It's out there, Shanna. I promise you, it's out there in one lump sum. Okay, like literally. And if you go and you only spend 150,000 of it, and you're like, well, but I'm in the green.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but you didn't spend the money that you said you were going to spend. That's why we gave it to you. We gave you the 250 because you said you had activities that you were going to do. You had this impact that you were going to make. You had XYZ things that were going to happen. So what didn't happen now that you're in the green with this extra 100K you have left over? Because what
Okay.
you're telling me is your project was really 150,000.
Okay. So
And I went on the weeds on that one. I'm sorry.
no, it's good because I can ride with you on that.
Okay. Okay.
So I guess I'm curious about one, where you can get that $250,000 lump sum. I want to talk about the types of grants that are that have that much weight to them, because we see a lot and we feature a lot of micro grants on the show. But I'm curious about that surplus that you have. Are you better off if you are tracking it? And I see at 6 months that I have only spent, and I've done everything that, I felt like you said, I did better than I thought I did. Things didn't cost as much. But let's just say in this fantasy world, because I'm having a hard time thinking that anyone is not going to fully use all of the funds that are available to them. Is it better that you then go ahead and look and say, okay, I've got other initiatives that I can do this. Now I've got this extra 100K. What can I do that still supports my mission and vision, that's in alignment with the parameters and criteria under which I got this grant? Is that kind of how business owners should be thinking about that if they're in the green?
Yes.
Okay.
So if, say, for instance, you're at 6 months and you realize, we'll keep running with 250, and you realize, I've spent only 100K. And I should have been at 125, right? 6 months, split it in half. What was that? Where did the 25K go? That's the first question that you should be asking internally, whether it's your accountant, it's your grant manager, it's your project coordinator, it's whomever is in charge of that line of funding. The question should be, where's the 25K? What didn't we do? And if we did everything and we just so happened to have someone gift us a thing that costs 25K, right? The ideal thing is to either add in, maybe it's an extra event or something you've already said you were going to do, and adding that in again. And this also telling your funder, like, hey, we had this awesome opportunity. We just wanted to give you a heads up. We don't need to change anything. We don't need to do anything new. We have extra 25K at our 6 months, and we're going to do an additional lunch and learn for 3 weeks or whatever it might be. Yeah. So does that answer?
It does. And
Okay.
it raises so many more. But I do have one question that's come in. So what building blocks? So we know that building a business, you're taking step by step by step. So what should you have completed before you start applying for grants? Meaning, should you already have your company registered? Should you have, this strategy, that plan? Do I need my EIN, LLC, DUNS? What all do I need to do before I start trying to apply for grants?
Yeah. So yes to all of that. You need, however your business is going to be incorporated, whether it's an LLC, an S Corp, a C Corp, or so, however you're doing it, having that established, having your EIN done. You can do your DUNS if you so chose. It's your DUNS is free. It's DUNS. You just submit and apply for it. And then it depends on what type of funding you want to go after. If you're interested in like your local government type grants that would come through them, from like an economic development department, if you're interested in going after federal funding, reel me back in, Shanna, because federal funding is also another opportunity. So you can reel me back in if I go too far, but you do have to go through a separate registration process in order to apply for federal funding.
Okay.
So you have to go through two different things. One is sam.gov and register your business, like get your account. And then you have to also do your UEI, which is your unique entity identifier. And until you get that UEI, you can't apply for any federal funding. It doesn't matter who it comes from. You cannot go to grants.gov, click on anything and like hit apply. It won't allow you. The other things to have in place are, how are you going to spend the money? Having a true budget and not a scarcity mindset of a budget where you've plotted out, let's just say you're hosting a workshop.
Okay.
And your workshop costs 10K. You know your workshop costs 10K. You've done the numbers. You see that everything in there it adds up to 10K. But you go and ask for 7,500. The question is, where's the other 2,500 coming from, right?
Yeah.
And that is like a challenge that a lot of folks have, especially women, when building out their budget. We don't always put the like finite details in there, but we need to pay for it. And it's the same thing when we're doing these with grants. You have to know what you're going to spend the money on, how you're going to evaluate that. So whether that's looking at a SWOT analysis, so these are all of the things. And I have a free grant checklist that I will share with everyone. And it will tell you, like, do you have simple things, right? Organizational overview. Can you tell your story? What's your history and capacity? What's, your big wins that you're experienced that you want to tell them about, your timeline of execution. And it's all a story. I just want to always remind people, it is always a story. So if you're storytelling in your grant application, so much so that as you're talking about it, you start to lean in more, that's the feel you want your grantor to have when they read your story.
Okay. So I love that. And I feel like I can tell a story. But what I want to know is, when it comes down to the money, you said, how are you going to spend it? If are they looking for specific to the penny type of things, or can you do I want to spend 20% on this, 10% on this? How do the funders look at how you're spending the money? Is it real tight, or can I just loosely give you parameters on how I want to spend it?
I would say the more specific you can be, the better.
Okay.
Especially depending on who the funder is, of course. So maybe your Tory Burch Foundations.
Yes.
Okay. Tory Burch Foundation, she does for-profit grants. In there, you might be able to say hey, I want to spend $1,500 on marketing, $2,500 on accounting. You could do those lump sums, but the higher funding opportunity that you're going after, the more restrictions you're going to have of saying lump sum numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. I can always keep going on that if you want me to, but that was the short and sweet.
Okay. Well, we only have a few more minutes with you.
Sure.
And I did jot down that question, and I've got several more. And if anyone in the audience has questions, please ask Natalie. This is about grants, and a lot of you want them. So if there's any questions that you have on how to get a grant, this is the lady to talk to. She comes highly, highly recommended. Mm-hmm. But the question that I wouldn't let you go into in the pre-show conversation was about fits. Yes. How do you know, finding the grants that fit you perfectly? Is this, because I can search, and believe me, I spend a lot of time searching for grants every week. And I'm just like, okay, this is garbage. This one's gone. No one I know is going to ever be able to. I don't even know who this is for. I feel like y'all are making this up so that you can keep the money. How do you know as a business owner that this is the right grant for you, that if I apply, I've got a really good chance of getting that?
Yeah. And as you were talking, I was like, oh, I remember what it was. And so I'll use this example. I just had someone have a conversation with me today. She works with individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We were talking about doing a research project using photography, and it's about highlighting the disparities of individuals in this community. She sends me a grant and she's like, Natalie, I think this is for me. And I look and it's specifically for organizations that are doing things with individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. It's specifically wanting to do more things in like the arts and media aspect of things. And it's like, it's fitting her entire budget for a year for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
You don't say no to that. Like
Right.
that's, you stay up all night. You stay up all night and do that, right? And so to find the right fit, that's what you want to see. Like if you are, I think of like the restaurateur one, the grants that I see, and I'm always like, who is this for? Because it's like a restaurateur with 2 million plus in revenue that is from Latin America and has 6 stores. I'm like, who is this for? You made this up. Like no one edited
For their
this.
cousin.
Yeah, like no one checked you before you hit like read, like view. Everybody can see it. You just did it by yourself. So you know, it's really looking for like your particular business. And I think like other great resources, I will give a huge shout out. Mogul Millennials sends out really, really great information. Black owned business. She's amazing. They come out every week. It's a free newsletter. They have incubators and accelerators, plus the grants in there, right? The great part about that is there's a human connected to it. Like you can actually email them and say, hey, I have questions, versus like Grant Station. It's another thing where you can go on there and you'll just be searching for hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, you can search for, I did that because I'm like, okay, I want to present something. And for me, I was trying to look at more of the state funded grants. But we can get more into that at another time, guys. It is time for us to transition into Just Good Business. We talk about businesses that are purpose beyond profit. That is something that's tremendously important to the heart of the Better Your Business show. You can make money, but what's your purpose? And so this business tonight is the Right to Shower. They've got a little video that they put out. And so we're going to watch that real quickly.
Our story started with a moment of realization. For people in our community living on the streets, it's often easier to find food and shelter than it is a place to wash. We soon began to realize the scale of the problem and what a shower means to a person living on the streets. A shower can restore dignity, renew hope, and help people feel more like themselves. And we believe that everyone has the right to a shower every day. That's why we created the Right to Shower, a new range of shower products that only uses ingredients and practices that are good and kind for everyone and stays away from anything that can harm them. Our products should make you feel good while doing good. Here's how it works. With every product you buy and shower you take, a percentage of sales helps us turn ordinary trucks and buses into mobile shower units so we can take them to the streets where people need them most. Right now, 3.5 million Americans currently live on the streets. Together, we can work to make sure everyone has access to a shower every day. But we can't do it alone. So wake up, take a shower, and join us. Let's do it together. The Right to Shower.
One of the problems that I've had thus far is that I'm going on my experience. I'm building a business on my heartache. And one of the things that I've had to take out of that is you can't build a business entirely on emotion. And so this allows me to take the emotion out of it. This is what you need to do, whether you like it or not.
Welcome back to the Better Your Business Show. This is our next to last episode for season 5. I'm Shanna Mavis, and our guest expert is Natalie Poindexter. She's going to join us here in just a little bit. But we are going into the segment where we are talking to a business owner. And you're going to recognize him because he was our expert from last year. But I love that he was willing to come on, because a lot of people think that experts don't have challenges in their businesses, and we do. So I told him I just appreciated his vulnerability. We want to go ahead and bring in Rolf Waldring, the right talent. Hey, Rolf, you're back at it again. I think you're muted.
There we go.
There
Now
you
I should be unmuted. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Not bad at all.
Well, all right. Tell us about your business first. We want to understand what the business is, what you do, who you serve, how you serve them, all kinds of good stuff.
All right. So, the business is largely focused on people issues in business. And the reason that is because I'm a former CEO, CIO who specialized in turning around underperforming organizations. And that meant I had to learn a lot about people. And I actually went and did a series of postgraduate stuff, which really equipped me to understand the social psychology of work. So that's the business. And it does a variety of things, which we don't need to dive into now. What's very interesting is that I have a constant marketing challenge. And over a number of years, I've had to learn what is the root cause of that challenge and why the various things that I've tried to do, which have been recommended by many of the people who are experts in that area, have failed to produce a lot of work. So, as a C-level executive, you working in small and large work, it doesn't matter. You're a very, very busy person and you network like crazy. People are constantly trying to get on your calendar. And then I switched over to running my own business. And after a while, many of the people that I had in my network either retired out or distanced out. And I began to have to address the fact that I had to learn how to market my business. So I went to the internet, the source of all wisdom. And I started to look at and research, and I quickly learned about lead generation and content-driven marketing, and ran in a number of stuff. And basically, the biggest thing that I learned is I had to rebuild my network. So I spent almost 18 months networking like crazy. And in that 18-month period, I didn't get a piece of business. I did the things that you did. I joined a number of effective networks. I ran a number of groups on those networks. I went regularly. I posted stuff on LinkedIn. I did all the things that the people were recommending. I even spent some money on lead generation, but no business came. So finally, at the beginning of this year, I started to get a little antsy about that, a little worried about that. And I decided that it was time to stop doing and pull back and start understanding.
Okay.
And so I made a commitment to not do as much networking as I was doing. I stopped posting regularly on LinkedIn and a number of other kinds of places. I stopped trying to do what we call content-driven marketing. And I started to talk to people about this problem. So the networking that I was doing now, often once we'd gotten past the connect stage and had some connection with one another, turned into a discussion about, is your marketing working? Is your networking working? Is what you're doing in terms of your content marketing or the lead generation that you're paying for, or the other approaches you're taking to marketing, is it working? And I discovered that for a large number of business owners, it wasn't.
Well, I'm gonna pause you for just a moment. And perfect. Carlton, your timing is perfect. I wanted to bring these ladies right back on the screen. Sandra Connor,
I know
You want to talk
Sandra.
about marketing? You know Sandra, right? So I was so excited when she said she wanted to join us. And then Natalie, we've got you back on there because you have a consulting firm. You deal with a lot of the same issues. And so we want to take this opportunity to talk more about this because Rolf is not the only business owner who struggles with marketing challenges. And Sandra, you have been instrumental in helping a few business owners that have been on this road. So I'm excited to have you back here. So let's dive a little bit deeper in. Rolf, if you want to give
Yep.
us a little bit more, and then Sandra jump in, and Natalie.
So one day I woke up and I said, let's stop talking about marketing techniques and let's really focus on who the audience is and where does that audience reside. And quite frankly, the audience for my business is C-level business leaders and business owners. And the one thing that when you talk to them is they're all extraordinarily busy. Well, so was I when I was a C-level business leader. And, I really didn't spend much time on the internet. I really didn't spend much time networking. I really didn't spend much time reading content simply because I was too busy. And I began to realize that one of my marketing problems was that although I was getting great advice and doing good stuff, I wasn't getting to the audience because the audience wasn't where I was networking or posting content or putting up videos or putting up e-learning programs or doing all the other kinds of things that I've tried over the years. And I think that's part of the problem. We have lots of experts with solutions, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their solution is well aligned with the problem that a business owner has. And my particular problem was that the kinds of business services that I was providing, the only people who have problems that resonate with those tend to be very busy people themselves and tend not to spend a lot of time on the internet. So that creates a kind of problem. You're running harder on the internet, but you're not getting any results. And it's not that you're not doing the right things or not listening carefully to the right experts or trying various kinds of things. It's that no matter what you try, if the audience isn't there, the content's not going to work. The lead generation's not going to work. The videos are not going to work,
Yeah.
even when people critique them and you make them better and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's one of the problems that we have is we forget that solutions, no matter how good they are, unless they get to the people with the problem, aren't going to generate business. And so I started to back away from that and ask a different kind of question, which is what do I need to do in order to get to that audience? I haven't solved that problem completely yet, but I think that that is the right problem to solve first. Now, because I develop e-learning programs and because I have so much business experience, I have lots of capacity to develop content. I've got 17 e-learning programs. I've got 10 or 12 books. But those books and that e-learning content and the short and the long-term videos, that's not what's lacking. What's lacking is an understanding of how to get to that audience.
So I'm going to pause you for just a moment because I'd love to hear Sandra's thoughts, and I know she's got some. I'm ready. I'm ready.
All right. Well, Ralph, the first thing that I go over with my clients, and the question is not always easy to answer, is what problem do you solve? Because when you come at it from the perspective of the problem that you're solving, if you are actually targeting something that exists in the minds of your audience, then they can start to resonate with you. So everything has to be about them, including the problem. So I ask you if you would be willing to answer that. What problem does your company solve?
Oh, I have a variety of problems that I solve. The main theme is always people, right? But I know those problems exist because when I get to the audience, I get engaged. So the problem, can run from how do I effectively hire a top performer? I've tried resume-based recruiting now for 5 years, and I never get top performers. I know something about doing that because I have business experience relates to that. The other problem that I sometimes solve for people is my My God, I got a sexual harassment situation that I'm suddenly responsible for. I have no idea of how to run such an investigation. So again, I know that problem exists, doesn't come up often, but it's a problem which exists. And then the other one is I've got a team that's in conflict and I need that team to be more productive. I know that problem exists because when I get to the people with that problem, they hire me. The problem is that the people who have those problems are not looking for solutions in the same place that I'm offering the solutions.
Okay. I believe you. I also believe the first one and the third one are likely more prevalent. So then the question becomes, where are the people that recognize they have those issues within their organizations and are willing to spend money to solve it? So have you dug into or asked the people that you've already worked with where they spend their time looking for those solutions?
Yep. So let me give you an example of the solution, which you wouldn't think of, which is an older solution and pre-internet. But I had a friend who had a very successful consulting business, like a nine-figure consulting business, right? And we sat down. I hired him at one point, and he said, "Where do you get most of your clients from?" He said, "From the back page of the airline magazine where I publish a regular column." And then we asked, why is that an effective channel? Because C-level executives fly regularly, and at the end of their flight, when they're tired, they pick up the airline magazine, and here's a one-page column on the back which talks about their problems. So that channel was highly effective and drove that business. Now, that's not a channel that most of us have access to. But what he solved in that problem is, where are they likely to have a little bit of spare time to think about it? Right? And how do you effectively communicate with that? So I've talked to lots of C-level executives and asked lots of C-level executives, how much time do you spend on LinkedIn? And guess what the average answer is? I don't spend time on LinkedIn. The only time I look at LinkedIn is when my PA or secretary tells me you need to look at that. I'm too busy to spend time on LinkedIn, right? Where do you go networking? I don't network. When I go to a networking session, right, there are people trying to sell me stuff. I have enough people trying to get on my calendar, right? I don't need to go to a networking community. And of course they network. Of course they go to the local chambers. And of course they go to business lunches. And of course they network. But they do that in the course of doing business. They don't do that specifically to look for solutions to their problem. The other thing that they do, and we talk about this quite, is they delegate. I got a sexual harassment problem. Here's what the standard answer is. I'll pick up the phone and call some of my friends and say, hey, I'm not sure how to deal with this. Have you ever dealt with this particular problem? So it's a personal network problem that they look to their personal trusted friends to help them find solutions, right? Because a lot of people who have to deal with harassment issues in the workplace, and I've done a fair amount of work in that area, are embarrassed first. They're embarrassed that they have the problem, and they're not prepared to widely talk about the fact they have the problem. So they go to people who they're already close to, people they already trust, and those trusted advisors direct them. Those trusted advisors, then you get to the next level question. So where do the trusted advisors spend their time? And that's one of the issues that I'm now trying to understand a lot better.
Okay, there are trusted advisors in organizations that C-level executives do participate in. And you also mentioned delegating. When they're delegating those challenges to be solved, because not all C-level folks, CEOs and CIOs from experience, handle each little detail. So who else is suffering besides them when it comes to these problems erupting and causing enough of a problem that it's impacting revenues, productivity, profitability? Who else is suffering through that besides the C-level person?
Well, I don't have the answer to that question yet, but I'm actively investigating it, right? Because I know that's the problem now. That's at least a kind of issue. But I think it gets us back to the general point, just like I need to figure out exactly where those trusted advisors spend time and how to get to them. That's the real marketing challenge. It's not the content, it's not the lead generation, it's not the posting, it's not the networking. Those are all solutions to the problem. But the problem has to be well defined first. And if you can't get to the people who are buying your services, that's the problem you have to solve. And that's the problem that a lot of the business people that I talk to in networking are also trying to solve. And they find that by and large, that they have to go back to the same solutions that have gone to the past. That's one of the reasons I'm here. Right? That's one of the reasons why I'm looking more and more to find people to be interviewed, looking to become a
Yeah.
guest on podcasts, because what you're ultimately selling at that level is who you are, right? And that means having a kind of presence in the marketplace that in my entire executive career, I never had to learn how to do. I never had to learn how to become a personality because I was an executive and I was too busy to be a personality. Suddenly I'm faced with the challenge of how do you become a persona that has some presence in the marketplace? And it's an interesting challenge, but it's a far more effective challenge than the things I think in the long run, than the things that I've done in the past.
Okay, so I think you're an interesting personality, Rolf. Spending that time with you last week, especially, I was like, yeah, I can dig it. Natalie, I'm curious to hear your thoughts and what you've run into with your business.
Oh, Rolf, I feel you, my friend. I I have had people say, Natalie, if you need to get in front of the right people, and they would just eat it up. And I'm like, sure, where's the right people? And they're like, well, you know, um, these places. Like, great. Will you put me in the room with the people that I need to talk to at those places? And they're like, get back to you. And so one of the things that I have been personally navigating in my business journey has been my personal brand. I
Yep.
am my company. That's it. I don't really do a product. I do mostly services. And a very dear friend of mine who is in marketing said, well, Natalie, if you are your brand, then you need to show up in your business and in public as your brand, and people will start asking you different questions.
Yeah.
And I think I'll say this, like my glasses are a thing. They're always a conversation topic. And so like getting into a room and having that item, like just something where somebody's like, ooh, Rolf, what are you? What do you do? Who are you? What do you have going on? Right. And then you start to talk about it and they're like, oh, I know somebody.
Yeah.
And it turns into this like cyclical thing. And I'm using that again, this is like a true reflection and mirror because these are the things that my marketing friends tell me. I have by no means figured it out, but that has been just personally something in this very short period of time is having an interesting, like going to that networking event and intentionally having someone ask you like, what is it that you do? And then they end up connecting you to the person that you wanted to talk to in the first place.
Yeah, but again, and I don't want to yes but because I think that's not very productive, right? But again, it's getting the right people to do that, right? And so one of the questions, one of the pieces of advice was right. Well, yeah, I've had a few books around for years. I don't write books because I think they're going to sell. I write books for one reason and for two reasons. One, to clarify my own thinking in the past, to generate material which we then used as part of the turnaround efforts I led. But the third thing is to create credibility with those kinds of audiences, right? One of the things I've learned by talking now to almost 12 podcasters, it's far easier for them to say, I'm bringing on an expert tonight who's written this book that you can find on Amazon.com than it is for that podcaster to say, I'm bringing on this expert tonight that I personally think is an expert. And so understanding the needs of the podcasters and finally putting the books up on Amazon.com is not because I think they're going to sell like crazy and I'm going to become a multimillionaire selling books. If that happens, great. You know, the world has done something that I don't expect. But it makes it far easier to begin to develop the connections with the podcasters and the other personalities that I'm trying to connect to. And it, you know, we in a networking session today, we talked to a person who is an expert at creating publicity events, and understand now that her job is far easier if you have the books, you have the references. That makes it far easier for her to present you as a possible expert on those kinds of things. That's brand new learning for me. I've never looked at the problem from that point of view. I've never stepped into a publicity agent's shoes and understood what they need in order to be effective, in order to promote you for various kinds of shows, and whether they're local or that sort of stuff. So again, that's identifying who's the audience. I've never would have defined my audience as a networking or a publicity expert who gets you on shows. And suddenly I've defined my audience as that. And that's a big change. And I think that takes us back to that issue. You really need to think very, very carefully about who the audience is in order to be able to take all the great things that people advise you to do and align those things with those audiences.
Yeah. Well, I know we're running out of time here. I did want to point out, Carlton said pretty much right before Sandra, he was putting in the chat for me, take a step back and identify the person who answers to the CEO or founder who may be dealing with the problem in some way and target them, because it'll be a lot easier for you to have that conversation. So I do want to give, Sandra another chance, or Natalie another chance. And
Sure.
I've already invited Rolf and Natalie to stick with me for this game coming up. Sandra, love for you to stay and play. I don't know what the game is tonight, but Fitzroy's going to be on. But before we jump over to that, any final thoughts for business owners like Rolf who are dealing with marketing challenges, finding the right person? Any just quick down and dirty tips that you can give them on that, Sandra?
Wow, quick, down, and dirty. Well,
Yes.
being able to answer in a couple of sentences, this is the problem that I solve. So, give you for an example, my company guides other business owners through defining who they are, what they do, and how they serve, so that when they describe themselves out in the world, people immediately understand whether or not they have the problem that they can solve, and possibly whether they want you to solve it. So being very, very precise about that. Not everyone will have the same problem at the same time, but you want it clear, and in all of your marketing efforts, networking efforts, all of your tactics, so that people clearly know what your company does without any question, that they can answer it just like you've answered it for them.
Awesome. What about Carlton? I saw that you jumped in, but I'm gonna ask you to pause for just a moment. Natalie, any thoughts to add to what Sandra was saying?
Identify your personal brand core values and use those to talk for everything, whether it's posting, it's social media, it's how you have your few sentences on what you do. It is something I'm working on defining as well. And having those personal brand core values is what helps you rebrand, get those conversations started, and move forward and find the right clients.
Okay, Rolf, you're an expert as well. I know you might have this challenge, but you know a lot because you talked about it up front. You're still looking to solve it, but any tips for those who haven't made it as far as you have?
Well, once you understand where the audience is that you need to reach, then engage the right expert, because you need to delegate. You don't always have that expertise, right? And so that's the effective approach that I've learned. Instead of starting with the solution, whatever that solution is in terms of marketing, really get clear on and find an expert who can get you really clear on where your audience spends their time and how to reach them. Because then all the various techniques that so many people on the internet offer excellent services on will really start to pay off for you.
Perfect. We're gonna bring Fitzroy in here in just a minute, but Carlton, you've got something to say. You
I
popped
do
in.
have something to say.
I
Hello,
know.
everyone.
We're ready.
So, Rolf, I'm sitting here thinking about what you're going through. And of course, I'm always thinking through specific sequences of steps that when we're building our business, we go through, including marketing. There's specific sequence that we do: value prop canvases, marketing strategy, marketing plan, sales plan, go to market, all the things, right? We do all these things. And to your point, one of the biggest components that get neglected in that process is developing the channels. And the reason why it's so hard to develop the channel is because we haven't developed our ideal client well enough. If we understand that, for example, if we were looking to communicate with large organizations, multi-million-dollar organizations, you're probably not going to find that CEO hanging around on LinkedIn, chatting in the messaging section or in a group networking room, right? Very rarely will you find that. But if you find a smaller CEO that's a newer organization, doesn't have a team, Mad Hatter syndrome, they're doing everything in the business, they're the expert for everything in the room, they're going to be on LinkedIn, hanging around in the room because they're looking for answers to their questions. So once you identify that your clientele is either over $1 million or below $1 million, that's going to immediately dictate your channels, because then you're going to change that up. And then when they have over $1 million, you know that they have a team underneath them. So now when you find them on LinkedIn, you're not looking to talk to the CEO on a team. I want to find the next person down on the team registered with that company on LinkedIn. And I want to talk to that person, because that person is going to go to lunch with the CEO and bring that topic up. And then that call comes in. So it's kind of by, the 6th degree, you got to go through a couple of people to get where you're going. But first, you got to understand how much revenue they're generating and how big their team is. And once you get that, that'll be your matchmaker. That's the formula to get to the channel.
All good advice. Love it, love it, love it. Bring Fitzroy in. We got a game to play. I got to see if I can keep my winning streak up. Fitzroy, I'm ready. What is it? Tell me.
So we're going to play the same game. We're playing top 5. For those of you who don't know, I'm going to name a topic. All of you are going to say what the top 5 selections are in that topic, and whoever gets the most is going to win.
And he doesn't let us play on teams or anything. So every man for himself.
Every man for himself. So today we're going to play, or rather, the question is, who are the top 5 most wealthy business keynote speakers?
Keynote
that's
speakers?
a difficult one.
Keynote speakers.
Okay.
Who do you think are the most wealthy when it comes to the keynote speakers?
Do we just shout these out?
Yeah,
Is this
you can just say,
organized?
Yeah.
you can just tell me who your 5
I'm making
are.
my list. Okay.
And those who are watching, you guys play along too. Get a paper, get a pen. See if you can beat these guys.
Ooh. I don't watch a lot of keynotes.
I'm just going to say the first one at the top of my list. Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm. I thought so too.
Okay, I'll add him to my list. I'm going to go with... I have Tony Robbins too. It's weird. It's right there.
Yeah, it's right there.
Simon Sinek is, I'm going to say he's one. Renee Brown. I'm sure Mark Cuban has done some keynotes. Tony Robbins and
Seth Godin.
Yes, that one too. My list right here. It's weird. It's in invisible ink, y'all. But yeah, let's go with that one.
Okay.
Any other names?
Anyone else?
Well, Myron
Natalie or
Golden,
Sandra?
I put it in the well, I guess private chat there, but
Myron
TJ.
Golden. I just heard about, okay, so Natalie Espin would laugh at me because I don't know anyone. But yeah, I just heard about Myron Golden. So, okay.
Okay. So
Oh,
I'll
that's
tell
a
you
good
what
one,
the top 5 are.
Bernardo.
Obama's,
I-
Clinton's, Oprah. Okay.
Boom, those are good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
they may be the
according
most
to
famous. I don't think they're the wealthiest, though.
Oh, you did say, yeah.
the
Okay.
wealthy, so according to the internet, number 5 is Benjamin Zander. I don't even know who that is. Number 4 is Ariana Huffington.
Oh, okay.
Huffington Post.
Yeah.
Huffington Post. Yep.
Yeah.
Number 3 is Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh,
Everyone knows
yeah, that
Gary
makes
V.
sense. Oh, man.
Mhm. Number 2 is Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, I would have
Oddly
never
enough.
got that one.
Never.
Okay. Yeah.
And number 1 is Damon John.
Oh.
Dang. So,
Yeah.
that was going to be my next list of 5. I didn't realize you said, I think I got confused for a minute. Okay. Guys, thank you so much for coming on here. Fitzroy, that was so
Of
much
course.
fun. We had our special guest expert, Natalie Poindexter, Sandra Connor, amazing marketing expertise. Check her out on LinkedIn. Rolf Waldring, the right talent, super knowledgeable about so many different things. It's your boy Fitzroy coming in with the game for tonight. So thank you so much for that. We do have some grants that we do want to run through real quickly, and then we're going to get you guys out of here. Carlton, if you can bring that up, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the grants that we have for the show tonight. First one is from Oregon. It is the Business Oregon. So this is a grant, $5,000. If you qualify, this is for you to prepare the application fee. So this is paying someone like Natalie to come in and help you apply for the SBIR and STTR. So innovation, small business innovation research and technology grants that are available federally. This is to help you get to that point if you're an Oregon resident. The next one that we have is the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation $15,000 workplace wellness grant program. So I think about Denise O'Malley with the wellness program. This is helping you set one up if you don't have one. So you can use that $15,000 for your employees to build a wellness program. The next one is the Lenovo Evolve Small Grant Packages, $15,000 plus. So they've got 3 different levels with multiple gifts given away in each of those. The biggest one is you also have Queen Latifah repping your brand. So keep that in mind, but $15K plus a whole bunch of things available to you. At the very least, you're going to get a laptop. And the last one is, again, just a reminder, the end of this month, Women-Owned Technology, $10,000 for the grant. Make sure you go and apply. There is a $15 application fee, but it gets you into any of the grants that are available. So those are our grants for tonight. We're going to make sure and we put those on there. Thank you all so much for joining us. It was a blast. I loved learning about grants. Glad that we could get that information over to you guys. Thanks to all of our guest experts, everyone showing up. We are not going to be here next Thursday. It's Thanksgiving, but we will be back for the last episode of season 5 on November 30th. So give us 2 weeks and we'll see you back here.
Our goal is simple: to help you achieve the dream and vision you first had when you thought about starting a business. We're here to make growing your business less complicated. There are building blocks to build a sustainable business. We promise to seek them out and address them all. The Better Your Business Show starts now.